Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me once again for tea time. Today we have a little bit of Fireside. So good. It has that lap song in it, just that smokiness, like if you're sitting around a campfire or something. It's so good. Anyways, guys, today we're going to be talking about Fujifilm. I really do like Fujifilm. I've talked about them a lot in the past. I do not shoot Fujifilm, but most of you know that I am pretty much agnostic. I'm not a fanboy. I don't carry the flag for any brand, and I use whatever is the best camera or video equipment or whatever it is for the job that I'm doing. So, like I've said in the past, I've always used medium format for my fashion work, product photography, and whatnot. The reason is because, number one, the clients require it. But moreover, the reason they require it is because it provides more data so that they can later on in post-production massage those pixels. If they need to be able to get in tighter, they can without losing as much resolution. All right, sometimes bigger is actually better. So today we're going to be talking about the Fujifilm GFX 100S. Brand new camera is going to be coming out, I believe, in March of this year. So I think they're taking pre-orders already. But anyways, before I get into it, I want to say that, number one, if you enjoy this content or any of the other 450 videos I've made, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, click the little bell icon over here so when I do make new videos or if I go live, you will be notified of it. And pick up my ebook. It's free. Go over to jcristina.com/ebook. Once again, jcristina.com/ebook. 10 tips at making tack sharp images. There's something there for amateurs, pro-ams, as well as professionals. You're going to learn something by reading it. Once again, it's free. Free is good. Go pick it up. Anyways, getting into it. The GFX 100S. This has been a camera that's been long awaited. It is the equivalent to maybe a baby brother of the Fujifilm GFX 100 at about what, 40% less or so the price. The GFX 100 came in at $10,000. That is a medium format camera. This new GFX 100S is coming in at $6,000. Tell you the price right off the bat. Okay, it's not cheap, it's not for everyone, but for many use cases, this is a really, really good camera. One of the things that I've always touched on is that sensor size does mean a lot when it comes to camera production, and camera sales. That's why I've said in the past that Micro Four Thirds would go away. They will be going the way of the dinosaur, the dodo bird, however you want to look at it, they are going to be going away. The reason being is they're just simply not as good, quote unquote, as a, let's say, APS-C camera, and they're at the same price at this point. So people will go with an APS-C instead of going with the Micro Four Thirds, and Micro Four Thirds is really being encroached in on by smartphones, right? So it's a major problem, and that's why Panasonic did a 360 and went from the GH line, which they still make, let's say, haven't seen a new one in a long time, but that is a Micro Four Thirds, to their S line, which is a full frame mirrorless camera, right? And it made sense. Olympus did not make that switch, and what happened to them? They ended up having to sell off their camera division. They stuck with Micro Four Thirds, and they went with the $3,000 quote unquote professional Micro Four Thirds camera that no one bought. So Fujifilm is one of those companies that never did that. They never got into that bloodbath of full-frame mirrorless wars that have been going on. They were smart. Fujifilm, in my mind, is basically the crop, not crap, the crop manufacturer. They make crop cameras. It doesn't matter what it is. So they make the APS-C, right, instead of a full frame. That is a crop sensor. They make the GFX line, which is a crop sensor of a medium format. Full frame medium format sensor. People are like, what do you mean? Full frame medium format to Fujifilm's GFX line. Well, I'll get into that in just a second. I think it's important. Some people know it, some people don't. I want to give you a little bit of information about this camera. We'll go into some key specs, and then I want to give you some information, some knowledge that might help you decide which way to go. Now that we see that blurring of the line between full frame and medium format, which Fujifilm is basically the catalyst to, people are having to decide which way to go. And it really depends on what your use case is. And I'll get to that in just a minute. Anyways, let's look at some of these key features. Now, starting at the top, it does have a 100 megapixel BSI backside illuminated CMOS sensor, which is 44 millimeters by 33 millimeters. That is a medium format sensor. I'll get into that size specification later on in this video. Now, the pixel pitch, or some people will call it pixel size, whatever you want to call it, is 3.76 microns. Keep that in mind also. That is an important number. That is the size of those pixels, okay? That is important. Next is image stabilization. It does have image stabilization, 5-axis image stabilization, 6 EV worth of compensation, which is really quite good. Remember, this is a medium format camera. That is a big sensor clunking around in there, moving all over the place, right? Also, it does continuous shooting up to 5 frames per second. Remember, 5 frames per second. Yesterday, we talked about the Sony, the Alpha 1, that does 30 frames per second. Obviously, we see a different use case, but look at the price. $6,000 for this camera, $6,500 for that camera. One's full frame, one's medium format. We'll get into that also in a minute. Next comes 4K. This camera will do 4K 30p internal 10-bit 420. Not bad. It will also do 4K 30p external 10-bit 422 or 12-bit RAW, which is quite amazing. 12-bit RAW, guys. That is really quite good out of a sensor that's this massive. I can't even imagine what that would look like. Anyways, next it has multi-shot that makes a 400 megapixel image stacking, basically what it does with a static subject. Its rear panel is 2.36 million dots of resolution, which isn't bad at all. That is a pretty good back panel. It also has a fixed, not a removable EVF. And the OLED in that is 3.69 million dots of resolution. So it has a really good EVF on it. As good as many of the cameras out there, not as good as we see that Sony just released with 9.4 million dots in its EVF, but for general purposes, 3, 4, 5 million dots is where everyone is at as of today, and this has it, which is good. Now, it also does both lossy as well as lossless, uncompressed RAW, 16-bit and 14-bit, which is sweet. That is a ton of information. I'm going to guess you'll probably see TIFF files over 500 megs, maybe 600 meg TIFF files. I mean, you're talking a lot of data here. Next, we have its card slots. Of course, it does have dual card slots, and they are UHS 2. I wouldn't expect anything less, right? And the battery is where they skimp a little bit. The battery that they use in this camera, the GFX 100S, instead of having the same battery as in their big boy, the Big Papa, the GFX 100, is a battery that they pulled out of their XT4. So it's a little bit of a downgrade. It gives you up to like 460 shots, but that's still not bad. They're trying to trim the fat, make it lighter, leaner, and whatnot, and reduce some cost also because they have to make up $4,000. They're using the same 100 megapixel sensor in both cameras, so they have to reduce it somewhere. Now, the camera is lighter and smaller, like I was saying. It is 500 grams lighter and about 30% smaller than its big brother, the GFX 100, which is quite good for many people. Ergo is very important. I think that holding a camera and it feeling really good in your hand is probably even more important sometimes than the actual images that you get out of it. I know it sounds crazy, but if you're not holding something you really want to take the picture or really want to create with it and make the picture, all right, you're just not going to do it. Okay, and that's one of the things that I said about that Sony, the Alpha 1, being like that little camera that looks like this in comparison to one that is with a battery grip, for example, where you have something to hold on to, some meat and potatoes, like a 1D or a D6 or something. I don't like it. But if you throw on that battery grip now, all of a sudden it makes more sense. This is a camera that comes very small, the GFX 100S, but you can make it bigger with a metal grip that you can purchase for about $150 after the fact, which is kind of cool. So now how did they make this lighter? Number one, it's the smaller battery, the battery that comes out of their Fujifilm X-T4. And of course, the body itself is smaller. There's less magnesium alloy there. And even the unit, its image stabilization, its IBIS unit is smaller and lighter weight. So there's a lot of things that went into making this, number one, cheaper, but also lighter, more compact, and that a lot of people were looking for. Coming up with a small, compact, medium format camera that is nearly the size of a full frame is something amazing, absolutely amazing, and that is what Fujifilm has been doing. Now, I want to get into some of the things when I was talking to you about the microns and how big these pixels are. Let me start out with larger pixels will normally produce better images. Now, why is that? Basically, it comes down to SNR, which is your signal to noise ratio. Now, can you get away with smaller pixels, using more of them, and then stacking images to create the idea or the possibility of better SNR? Yes, you can. We were talking about it in a live broadcast that we did with an amazing astrophotographer the other night. If you haven't watched that video, go check that out. 2.5 hours of just incredible information. Basically, astrophotography 101. Go watch it. Anyways, he was talking about, whereas if you don't have a, let's say, a full frame and you're using a APS-C or maybe even a Micro Four Thirds, you can kind of fake it a little bit by stacking those photos and then later on in post-production using that stack and removing some of that noise by doing so. It's a way of using many images to get a better SNR, better signal to noise ratio. That's what these small cameras or the small sensors do on these phones. They will take, let's say, 10 shots, smash them all together, and then all of a sudden you get a shot, you're like, wow, how did it do that? Well, that's how it did it. It just took a whole bunch of shots, you might not even be aware of it, and then smushed them all together. And there you go, a better SNR. So this is something that is important to think about. And I want to look at some of these cameras just so you get an idea of what you're getting. All right, what you are getting, the size of these pixels in comparison to other. So when we look at an image and what is produced, when you have something that is creating an image on a larger sensor, you're going to get more data. All right, that's why medium format our customers want in comparison to full frame. Why? So then later on in post-production, you can zoom into that image or crop into that image a lot deeper because there's more data there. So if I take a bust-up shot of a model, they could use that bust-up shot for full, the full shot, or they can zoom in straight into an eye and sell eye makeup. All right, or they can zoom in just to the head to sell something else or whatever and use the exact same shot. All right, very, very important for many, many magazines. They do it all the time. Matter of fact, Martha Stewart magazine, they used medium format film only until a few years ago. That's film, yes, you heard it right. Why? Because there's so much data. You know what their images look like. They're amazing. Anyway, so when we look at a GFX 100, for example, the sensor in that is the exact same sensor that's in the 100S that's coming out. It is a 43.8 by 32.9. Let's call it a 44 millimeter by 33 millimeter sensor. Same in both. Now look at the pixel size. They're both 3.76 micron. That's how big each one of those pixels are. All right? So if we look at a Hasselblad, something like an H6D, a 100C, all right, from Hasselblad, look at the size of those pixels. You're looking at 4.6 microns. That is almost a full micron bigger, all right, than what we see in the GFX line. But now look at the size of that sensor. You're looking at 53.4 by 40 millimeters. It is bigger. That's why I say the GFX is a crop full frame medium format. It is a crop medium format camera. They use a crop sensor. Okay, so keep that in mind. But now look at the difference in the price. That Hasselblad goes for $33,000, and the GFX 100 goes for 10 grand, and this brand new 100S goes for 6 grand. Compared to 33,000 to 6 grand is unbelievable, all right? But of course, they're not identical. You're going to get more data, more information for your $33,000, but what is that ROI? What is that return on investment? Are you getting enough to pay that amount? 4+ times more expensive? I would venture to say no. If you went with a Phase 1, one of their XF100s, that thing is also 100 megapixels, but it's $33,000 also. But the sensor is just like the Hasselblad. It's right around that 53.7 by 40. It's a little bit bigger, all right? Once again, full size. It is bigger than what you're getting out of the Fujifilm. But is it worth 4 times the price? Once again, I would say no. It just doesn't make sense to do it. But now look at those micron size, okay? And this I want to get into the 50 megapixels because this is what we were talking about in the last show with the Sony Alpha 1. That Sony Alpha 1 is a 50 megapixel camera, but look at the pixel size, 4.16 microns. Remember, 4.16 microns, whereas that Fujifilm GFX 100S is 3.76 microns. So you're going to say, well, the Alpha 1 has larger microns, so it's going to make a better picture. Well, kind of, sort of. But look at the size difference. You're looking at a 36 by 24 size sensor in comparison to a 44 by 33. It is a big, big difference in the amount of size. So even though you're getting a larger micron pixel on that Alpha 1, the problem is you're getting a heck of a lot more size and they are more spaced. You have less noise. You have a better signal to noise ratio by getting this big, massive medium format sensor. Those images are going to come out most likely better, and you're going to be able to zoom in or crop in deeper because you just have a lot bigger area, surface area to take that photo. All right? Larger, a lot of times, is better. And in this case, it is. Now let's look at some other 50, let's say, megapixel cameras. We have that Sony Alpha 1 sitting at 4.16 micron. You have the Canon EOS R5 at 4.39 micron. So the Canon actually has a larger micron pixel than the new Sony Alpha 1. Did you know that? Okay, and they're both 36 by 24, 36 millimeter by 24, which is full frame. Keep that in mind. Now you have the Sony A7R4, the older, obviously, unit from Sony. That has a 3.76 micron pixel. That is the exact same pixel size as that GFX, right? But look at the size difference. Once again, you have 36 by 24 in comparison to like 44 by 33. A much bigger sensor. Now, as far as the GFX line, GFX, Fuji has their 50 millimeter. They have a 50S and a 50R. The 50S has 5.31 micron. That is a massive, an absolute massive pixel. Whereas the GFX 50R also has that 5.31 micron pixel in it. Now, just to round it out, the Hasselblad, that H6D, the 50C, not the 100C we talked about earlier, the 50C, that 50C is 50 megapixels, also has 5.31 micron size. All the same sensor, right across the board, right? Same size pixel and the same size. But now look at this price difference. If you look at that micron, that size, okay, and you say, well, I want something big, you know, the biggest for my money. Right now at 5.31, we can see $4,500 for that GFX 50R. That's why a lot of people love that camera, because they're getting a ton of value for $4,500. Trust me on this. If you have $4,500 to put on a camera and you get that 50R, that GFX 50R, you're going to be like, amazed, because when you look at that image compared to what you shoot on a full frame, you'll never be able to go back because you'll be spoiled. That's just it. That's how it is. So anyways, I want to show you what this looks like in the crop factor. We can see APS-C here, then you see full frame, then we see medium format, but from Fujifilm. This is a GFX 100. It's the same sensor as a GFX 100S. And then finally, we have that Hasselblad. This Hasselblad size is the exact same as a Phase 1. But now look at the difference. And that's why I say Fujifilm is the crop company. They make a crop medium format. They make a crop full frame. That's what they do. And they're smart for doing it, guys. They are crushing it. They're absolutely killing it. Hasselblad has been going lower and lower on their prices. Why? Because they have to. They're just not selling. Why aren't they selling? Because Fujifilm. People are looking at it and they're saying, once again, the ROI, that value, return on investment, is just not there. For the larger sensor, even though this is a crop, you're still getting more for your money. Like I said, 4 times the price to get a Hasselblad to getting this. But the sensor isn't 4 times smaller, is it, right, guys? So anyways, to come back all the way to the beginning, medium format is not for everyone. There's people out there that will tell you that medium format is the next best thing since sliced bread, and everyone's going to go from full frame to medium format, and it's just simply not the case. It has to do with what you are going to use the camera for. Like I said, if you are going to look at the Sony Alpha 1, which I think is the equivalent to, for example, a R1 that will eventually come out from Canon, whatever they call it, doesn't matter. Their professional 1D replacement, okay? You're buying that camera not for resolution, you're buying that camera for frame rates, your FPS. Sony Alpha 1 is now doing 30 frames per second, guys. The sports, action, wildlife shooters are going to love that. Okay? Has 2 processors to be able to do 50 megapixels. That is a ton of megapixels. A ton to be able to bang out 20, 30 frames per second. And Canon will do the exact same thing. So if you look at it and say, well, this medium format from Fujifilm cost me $6,000, all right? Whereas the Alpha 1 would cost me $6,500. Well, maybe I should go medium format because I'm getting a hell of a lot bigger sensor. The images are going to be a hell of a lot better. There's a lot more data there. Why don't I go with that? It just makes sense. Less money, better images. But once again, the answer to that is no. Because if you are a sports, action, wildlife, anyone in between that needs that fast rate, okay, you're not going to be able to use a medium format camera like this one that's shooting at 5 FPS on its best day. It goes lower than that, depends on what you're doing. So, these are cameras that are for deliberate photo taking, product photography, portraiture, okay, fashion sometimes. It depends. Are they going to be moving fashion like on a runway, walking back and forth fast? Your lockup might not be as fast. Well, I know it will not be as fast. So your tracking might be an issue. You might get a lot more misses. So there is a camera that's right for every application, and no one camera works for every application and it's perfect for every application. Okay? So you need to buy the camera that's right for what you're doing. And medium format, in my personal opinion, is right for the majority of what I do. When it comes to product shots, or when it comes to any type of fashion work, still work, that is the camera of choice. Not only for me, but also for my clients. They want all those megapixels, but big pixels. All right? So, is the Fujifilm 100S right for you? $6,000. Not cheap, but you're getting a hell of a camera for it. You can also pick up for $150 that metal hand grip. I personally would do it. All right? I don't want anything really small. I need something a little bit more bulky. I don't care about a little extra weight. I want to be able to hold something and feel comfortable shooting hundreds of pictures, thousands, whatever we're doing, and not have to worry about it feeling awkward in my hands, okay? So I'm really about ergo. I think that it's very important. I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think that Fujifilm has literally blurred that line between medium format and full frame with their GFX line over the last couple of years? I personally think so. I want to know what you think. Also, what do you think will happen moving forward when we see Fujifilm being able to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper with these cameras, we're seeing that Fujifilm 50R at $4,500. What you're getting for that $4,500 is spectacular. I don't even know what else to say. If you have a couple of bucks to put together, rent that camera in. Pick up that camera, test it, and come back and report back. You tell me what you think. All right? Every time I shoot Hasselblad, when I go back into the studio and I look at some of the full frame stuff, I'm like, oh my God. I just hate my full frames. And I got tons of them. All right? I just hate them. But I'm not going to bring in a $33,000 Hasselblad and then another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of lenses to sit there and literally just watch it depreciate on the shelf. It just simply doesn't make sense. We don't do enough of that to be able to warrant it. So renting in the equipment that you need for a specific job just makes more sense. But this is where things change a little bit. Now that we see Fujifilm providing a $6,000 100 megapixel camera, it almost warrants bringing in that camera and leaving it here instead of renting it in. Because when we rent in $60,000, $70,000 worth of Hasselblad equipment, it's not cheap. And a lot of times we're renting it in for a week straight. Okay? It is expensive, very expensive. So to get to $6,000 won't take too many rentals, okay, along with everything else, insurance and everything else that goes into it that we have to keep for having nearly $100,000 worth of equipment that we rent in. So it's something to think about. And I think Fujifilm, like I said, just simply got it right. They are that crop manufacturer. Doesn't matter if it's APS-C, which is crop full frame, or if it is a crop of a medium format, which is their GFX line. They just got it. They just make sense. There was a need for it, and they are capitalizing on that need. And I don't see Canon or Nikon or Sony doing it, even though they can, which is really strange to me. Very strange. They are that niche item. That GFX is that niche item that a lot of, I think, big professional photographers that do more stills are really looking into and purchasing. So, like I said, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think? If you like this video, as always, throw it a big thumbs up. That would be helpful. Click the little bell icon right over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you'll be notified of it immediately. Don't forget that ebook over at jchristina.com/ebook. And if you want to contribute to the channel, click the little join button down here. You can throw us a couple of bucks every month and we'll throw you guys out some perks. I appreciate each and every one of you that are currently supporting the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's going to really improve our channel as a whole moving forward for this year. I have a lot of things planned for this year. Anyways, when you're done commenting below, go over to our creative Discord server over at community.jchristina.com. Once again, community.jchristina.com. You can find a ton of great people, as you see down here, no trolls, having conversations about tech, video, photo, everything in a whole bunch of different channels. If you're interested in that astrophotography, go hit up that Astro channel over at community.jchristina.com. and ask Ken any kind of questions that you have. He has the answers for you. And finally, guys, if you haven't went over to my website, go check it out over at jchristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. Use promo code YT20 at checkout, and you're going to get 20% off everything that's in your shopping cart. Once again, promo code YT20. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for yet another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.